Yeah. Hey, we got Henry on the line at North Adelaide. Hello, Henry.
Yes, gentlemen. Yes, I can't believe the ill-informed opinion that's being put over the line here.
Can't you? You haven't even started talking yet. What are you talking about, Henry?
Well, the woman who just called in saying that they do not meet the criteria of a vaccine, that is dead wrong. That is absolutely wrong. These vaccines, whether they're the Pfizer, the synthetic, or the AstraZeneca, they trigger an immune response in the form of production of antibodies. The Pfizer is a synthetic. The AstraZeneca is causative, so it's a small dose of the virus. They qualify as vaccines because they provide immunity. Where's she getting her information from?
They don't provide immunity. All they do is treat the symptoms because they don't provide immunity.
That is rubbish.
We talked about that earlier, Henry. They don't provide immunity. You can still get the COVID-19 and you can pass it on. So where's the immunity in that?
I tell you, if you are fully vaccinated, you do not end up in hospital. You do not end up on a ventilator.
That's because in some cases you can end up in a morgue.
Look, you don't get it, Andrew. The thing is...
I do get it. I do get it. No, you don't want to listen to the other side of an argument.
Well, I don't like hearing incorrect information put across the line. And if you're fully vaccinated, you'll get very minor symptoms.
Oh, yeah.
You will carry a very small viral load.
All right.
And there's a very good chance you won't even pass it on to someone else.
Right.
So the case for immunization, for vaccination, is compelling. This Delta outbreak started with one limousine driver who was not vaccinated on June the 16th. And from that, if you count in the Melbourne casualties, it's over 1,200 people from one. If he had been fully vaccinated, there's a very good chance he wouldn't even have passed it on to anyone else.
But the thing is, you can still pass it on, and they've cited this, and it's documented. You can still pass it on, even if you are fully vaccinated, Henry.
You don't get it, Andrew.
What part of that don't you get?
Well, you don't get it because I'm telling you that.
Well, you don't get it more than I don't get it.
The chances of passing it on are minimal, Andrew. The medical evidence is compelling.
Of course it is.
If people are going to exercise very poor judgment and not be vaccinated, they will have to face the consequences of being discriminated against.
Discriminated against because it's their body and they believe they have a choice, and even though their points of view may be valid, they still have to go ahead and get this vaccination, or they'll be discriminated against. That doesn't sound right to me.
They'll have to face the consequences.
Or face the consequences. We're going to face the consequences one way or another anyway, aren't we?
No, because if people are going contrary to the medical advice, and it's compelling, if they're not rational enough to accept the expert advice...
You're being, I think you're being disrespectful to those people who are questioning the validity of some of the information that we're being fed.
Well, look, if you cast a broad net and you look at all the medical data, the case for vaccination is absolutely compelling.
Yeah, we're talking about, we keep on comparing this to other vaccinations and diseases that have happened in the past, but we've never faced anything like this, as Frank has been saying all evening. So therefore, when it comes to the short amount of time for the testing of the vaccines, the doubt about the vaccines themselves, the actual credentials of the pharmaceutical companies themselves, I mean, that's enough to make me doubt things even more as well.
No, look, that's
all right. That sort of corruption is all right with you.
The symptoms you read out for that woman in America who claims to have got the symptoms from the vaccine, you could multiply that by hundreds of thousands and say those are classic long-term COVID symptoms. So it's a small price to pay if one person out of hundreds of thousands, millions...
Yeah. Hundreds of thousands of millions. I thought it was 1 in 20,000 or something like that.
Well, I don't think it's anywhere near that.
Yeah, well, that's the figures. Some of the figures that have been talked about.
No, I don't think that's true. I think you'll find it's more like at best 1 in 100,000, probably more than that. But what I'm saying is, if people are going to exercise very poor judgment and not be vaccinated,
your opinion.
I'm listening to the experts.
I'm listening to other experts.
Well, I tell you, it's unbelievable. People don't understand probability theory, and if you lose one person in a few million, and you save the lives of hundreds,
well, I hope that one person isn't you. I hope that one person isn't you, Henry, because Talkback Radio would miss you.
Well, I just get very frustrated, Andrew, when I hear absolute incorrect information pushed across this platform.
It goes both ways, Henry. It goes both ways.
Well, just listen to the medical experts.
It goes both ways.
And don't tell me that they're not vaccines because they meet the criteria of vaccines. They do provide immunity. And as I'm saying, if that one limousine driver had been fully vaccinated, there's a very good chance he wouldn't even have passed it on to one other person. And look what the mess we're in now.
But it's all hypothetical, really, isn't it? Because
no, it's not hypothetical
at all. It was hypothetical because he wasn't vaccinated. But, Henry, it's always a pleasure.
As Frank says, it's the only weapon we've got, and if people are going to exercise very poor judgment and not be vaccinated, well, then they'll have to be considered pariahs of society.
Pariahs, social outcasts, because they stood up for their own rights, because they didn't want to go along, and despite their well-founded concerns, they didn't want to go and, be vaccinated. They become social outcasts. Good on you, Henry. Thank God you're not in charge of this country, mate. We, boy, would be in trouble. And at Roslyn Park, how are you?
Oh. How dare Henry think he's the expert, number one. And getting back to, well, I do want to talk about my position on COVID and well-spoken, is it Eileen?
Eileen, yeah.
An 83-year-old lady who's
Elaine.
Elaine. An 83-year-old lady who's paid taxes all her life and it's not going to be bullied around by certain people who believe that vaccination is the answer, because I don't believe it is the answer. And I, too, am with you. It is not about immunity. It's about minimising the ability to have use on our hospital resources and the alleged inability to transmit. However, we don't know of all those people who currently have COVID, how many of those have, in fact, had full vaccinations. No one's talking about that. And going back to Frank, he makes mention about Stephen Marshall not being able to fulfil all his election promises. Well, I'd just like to ask Frank, wasn't it SA Best who prevented the capping of rates, and also SA Best who prevented shopping hours whenever?
Yes, and we'll still be opposing it, and we'll be gladly opposing the referendum because we enjoy the cheapest grocery prices in South Australia. We have one of the most competitive grocery markets than anywhere else in Australia because of the independence. So, yes, absolutely. And as for rate capping, well, how much have your rates gone up over the last couple of years? You're in Burnside, aren't you?
Yep.
How much have they gone up?
They've gone up.
Yeah, but how much?
I don't know. Every year they go up by about $100.
No, they've gone up by very small amounts. In fact,
still $100.
Well,
and people who are on fixed, and many of the people who live in Burnside who are on fixed income streams with interest rates really low and shares not really performing that well, have got huge properties to maintain, which have huge valuations placed on them. So they pay higher water rates, they pay higher council rates, et cetera, and they're on limited income streams. Many of them are retired and don't work. And just because they're asset rich doesn't mean they're income rich.
I agree. I agree
and
with
number two, Frank, I assume you're fully vaccinated?
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that you had the Pfizer?
No, I haven't. No.
You haven't had the Pfizer, you had the AstraZeneca?
No. The COVAX-19 from Professor Petrovsky, and I will be booking in to get one of those vaccines because I take blood thinners and whatever. I need to be mindful of which vaccine I take. So I've got an appointment with my doctor coming up, so we'll be discussing what I'll be taking. But even so, I have had the the COVAX-19 vaccine, which I took part in the trial last year. Had no side effects whatsoever.
And, of course, all the politicians have mainly had Pfizer rather than the AstraZeneca, and regardless of their age group. I wonder why that was.
Well, I don't know. And look, it's a question that I would like to ask as well. I think, as I mentioned earlier in the night, I did say, and I'll say this again, that Australians should have the choice of whatever vaccine they want to take. And people over 60 should not be corralled into only having the AstraZeneca. And this is the reason that we haven't had the high uptake of vaccines in this state and this country, is because people are suspicious about the efficacy and safety of AstraZeneca. And if you want to, if you want to improve the rate of vaccinations, give people a choice. Let them go out and decide which one they want. And I agree with that.
Yeah, and you suggested that employers should have the opportunity to force their employees to be vaccinated.
Well, they should ask their employees to come to work. If they're going to come to work, they should have had a vaccine.
And if they get sick from it, you also suggested that WorkCover would look after them. Well, perhaps you should listen to poor Shirley and her experiences with WorkCover and many other employees who dared to go on to work.
Yes, you're right. You're right. WorkCover is shocking.
WorkCover is not going to be able to satisfy someone who's had the rest of their life ruined because they've had some trial vaccination that doesn't even work. And no one's saying how effective it's been in Australia. All they're doing is having a go at the way it's been rolled out. Well, we don't know how many people are transferring it who've already had the vaccination. And until that is made clear, no one in their right mind is going to put stuff into their body in the hope that these people can open up Australia to more COVID-infected people coming in. It's all about economic greed rather than looking after the safety of Australians. And what we should be doing is we should be planning for the fact we are going to have more COVID cases and increase the size of our hospitals. And the first thing that we should be doing in South Australia, and SA Best should be looking at, is putting pressure on the Marshall government to build a new children's hospital that has more beds, to increase the size of the existing Adelaide Hospital, Queen Elizabeth Hospital and Flinders Hospital. So maybe we wouldn't have so much ambulance ramping, and maybe we can look after the long-term health benefits of our citizens rather than looking after whether we have entertainment like car racing coming in, Frank.
And good to hear from you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your call as well. You going, Frank?
I'm ticking everything she said.
You're ticking everything
I agree
she said.
with a lot of things she said, but we also need the car race here as well. But, I agree with a lot of things she said, and we do support a lot of the things that she said.
All right, I got a couple more emails. Grant says, I bet Henry still believes in Santa Claus. Well, who doesn't believe in Santa Claus? You believe in Santa Claus too, don't you, Frank?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Ben says... Yep.
I guarantee you he'll be taking a vaccine. He'll have the vaccine.
Will he be forced to?
He'll be taking the vaccine before he heads off and visits the kids around the world.
No, I wouldn't. No.
The interesting thing is what is he going to take?
No, the thing is maybe he's going to rely on natural immunity. Ben says, I'm more concerned about the bigger picture, where anyone that has an objective opinion towards COVID vaccinations is forced to either apologise for it or simply banned or censored for it. Thanks, Ben. That's the reason why I've been like a bit of a dog with a bone with Frank this evening, because it's true. If you dare question something to do with COVID vaccinations, then, you get the likes of Henry saying you should become a social outcast, be turned into a pariah, you should be discriminated against and all the rest of it. That's
same if you go out and support it the way I have. You'll become a pariah, and the mob will come out after you, as it has. I've got some pretty atrocious messages tonight.
Not from my listeners.
No. On my own